Castillejo del Bonete, TERRINCHES, Ciudad Real, Spain. A funerary cave monumentalized with burial mounds in the 3rd millennium Cal BC. Castillejo del Bonete was a ceremonial site used for more than 1,000 years during the Copper and Bronze Ages, from the middle of the 3rd millennium to the middle of the 2nd millennium Cal BC. It is located in the interior of the Iberian Peninsula, on the southern edge of the Castilian Meseta, in a place with great visibility, overlooking a natural pass along the southeast of Ciudad Real province. It has a strategic position between the river basins of the Guadiana and the Guadalquivir. These are two main rivers in Spain. Excavations at this site began in 2003 and are still ongoing. The rites that were performed at this site were related to death and the resurrection of the sun, as well as veneration of ancestors. There is evidence of feasting rites, offerings to the dead, and architecture oriented around the winter solstice. A natural cave art was monumentalized and used as a funerary chamber, and a large mound, or tumulus, was built over it. The cave has 4 spaces, or galleries, where the dead were deposited on the rock, sometimes surrounded by a ring of small stones which mark the place of the tomb. The cave has a total length of 35 meters and deepens below Great Tumulus 1 to a height of -4.5. Their galleries sometimes have a free height of 0.7 meters, which barely allows for crawling. Dragging corpses through these winding galleries must have been difficult. The cave has no ventilation. The mortuary atmosphere must have been fetid. It was clearly not a habitation. Limestone funerary stelae were placed in some of the underground tombs. One of them, Fossiliferous, has 15 bivalve fossils, Pictinidae, and comes from a neighboring province which is approximately 60 kilometers away. The main tumulus, built on the cave, is 23.5 meters in diameter and 98 meters in perimeter. It's connected to other burial mounds by several corridors. Those minor burial mounds served as secondary burial chambers at a later time of use of this sacred place. To the east is a large building measuring 85 square meters and 14.1 by 7.4 meters, which is known as Enclosure 4. This place, with the entrance facing the dawn of the summer solstice, does not contain tombs and was probably used for meetings and prayers. In short, Castillejo del Bonete contains a cave that was used as a burial chamber, which was monumentalized at the end of the Chalcolithic, with a large burial mound that had several corridors oriented towards astronomical events, and over time that was connected by corridors to other smaller burial mounds used as burial chambers. These connecting corridors artificially mimicked the dark and cramped conditions of the underground galleries within the cave. Within and surrounding the main mound, 6 individuals were found in 5 graves. Beneath the mound was a caustic system of funerary galleries that people sealed at some time in prehistory. Here, at least 11 individuals were found, 6 adults and 5 sub-adults. Although anthropological analyses are still ongoing, we can conclude that this is a small number of individuals, given the long period of use of this monument. This could be explained by cultural hierarchy or by the social role played by the buried individuals. Burials in the tumulus and its surroundings were both primary, in fetal position and lateral decubitus position on the right side, and secondary, which indicates the reuse of the funerary space. One good example is Tomb 1, which, although disturbed in ancient times when used as a burial mound, it housed the remains of a 30 to 35-year-old male individual. Another good example is Tomb 4, the only multiple burial in the site. Here, a 40 to 50-year-old male and a 30 to 40-year-old female were found. The male was of Eastern European genetic ancestry, while the female was native to Iberia, although probably of coastal origin. Each individual was buried with a ceramic vase. The man had a copper knife and an archer's bracer, and the woman had a well-worn knife, an awl, and 2 ivory V-perforated buttons. Tomb 5 was located in a deteriorated corridor which connected the Great Mound 1 to another secondary mound. This tomb belonged to a 40 to 50-year-old male with degenerative signs such as osteoarthritis and dorsal kyphoscoliosis, which is a deformity of the spine. This individual also presented muscle stress signs on upper limbs and shoulders, suggesting activities related to archery. The anthropological study of this male and the good conservation of his skull have allowed for his biometric reconstruction. In addition to human remains, thousands of archaeological artifacts were also found at the site, carefully deposited in holes of different sizes, some better built than others. These deposits were covered after use to restore the body of the burial mound to its original physiognomy. Some of the artifacts were found in their original position. For example, a mano and metate were buried in the walls of the mound placed in their position of use. There were also polished stone axes, stone maces, and flake lithic pieces, both foliaceous and dentate. The ceramic assemblage of Castillejo del Bonete contains all of the characteristic forms of the 3rd and 2nd millennium BC, with vessels typical of everyday activities that are common in any contemporary village. These were made by hand with clay from the surroundings. Most of these are smooth, without decoration, but others have incised decoration with schematic soliforms. Some were decorated with white limestone paste. In addition to stone tools and ceramics, there is also evidence of metal objects. Personal adornments such as bone or seashell pendants and dozens of variscite, chaotic, and lignite. Remains of food, mostly goat and sheep, some with signs of butchery, were also found at the site. I would like to now turn to another aspect of the site, its orientation. Several astronomical events are related to the architecture of Castillejo del Bonete. The results of archaeoastronomical studies are of great interest and suggest an astronomical planning of the monument. The sunrise at winter solstice takes place over the center of the top of the most striking mountain that's visible from the site, Peña del Cambrón, the Cambron Crag. This mountain is 1,550 meters high, located about 30 kilometers away and has an unusual rectangular profile with a flat top and very steep edges. People may have used the peña as a marker or as an indicator of when to carry out winter solstice funerary rituals. Corridor number 1, the longest excavated corridor, has a long rectilinear initial structure that curves, linking it to the tumulus number 2. The straight part of the corridor seems to point to the horizon where the winter solstice sunset occurs. This is the intention to direct the sun's rays on that specific day towards the interior of the Great Tumulus 1. The play of light causes the interior of the corridor to progressively go from darkness to light. Suddenly, the corridor is flooded with dazzling light. A few minutes later, the sun disappears over the horizon and darkness descends. This type of light will also be produced inside the cave, specifically when the sunset ray of light hits a panel on which schematic scenes were painted. A red anthropomorph is clearly distinguishable. This light effect would cease to occur with the monumentalization of the cave, because the burial mound built on it would interfere with the light coming in. The cave was at first used as a burial place without any burial mounds, as it was monumentalized after being used for some time. In addition, there are 2 other clear astronomical markers in the architecture of Castillejo del Bonete. The flagged corridor A faces the sunset of the summer solstice. In this case, its funnel-shaped arrangement allows the sun's rays to enter the interior of the burial mound, not just for one day, but for several months. North and south walls of enclosure number 4 are parallel and oriented similarly to corridor number 1. The door of the building and the north wall face the summer solstice sunrise with great precision. Conclusions. Castillejo del Bonete was a sacred place which was first used during the Chalcolithic period, south of the Iberian Plateau. Its use continued with the Motilla culture during the Bronze Age. This place has deep symbolic, ritual, and monumental significance. Its architectural spaces show no sign of occupation. It is also of immense archaeoastronomical interest. It seems to be situated to maximize visibility of a very striking and precise marker of the winter solstice sunrise on the conspicuous Peña del Cambron. The orientations of several passages of this solar monument also seem to have a meaning relating to astronomy and/or landscape. Sites like Castillejo del Bonete might have been constructed by the inhabitants of motillas in order to legitimize the use of the territory and valued resources by drawing connections between themselves, the ancestors, and the heavens.